Was there this master plan to pick a 23 that was going to be the World Cup final 23? And it wasn't the case.
And then, we mentioned Fussy. He's a guy who's kicking games come along, I think, nicely this year. Games.
Vir my joh, ek was te teleurgesteld. Zeker vir Tannie. You and the Pieter Staff is not looking so strong.
Well, the sun did come up in Cape Town, Joburg, Durban, and Barbera. I don't know about Nelspruit and Boksburg, but it came up. Life does move on. There is another test, but the absolute disappointment of losing at Eden Park won't go away. And funny enough, Zels, a lot of the calls and messages I got post the game was, hey, give it to them hard, eh? And don't be so negative, guys.
Yeah.
Come on, back the Boks. Boks by 10 always. The meaning of that, we always back them. It's not a literal they will win by 10. We'll always back them, but we're never going to excuse a performance that just wasn't good enough. And we're also not going to kind of give a narrative or rhetoric that we don't believe in. As evidenced by our post-match comments, when it was all emotion from my side and a lot of structure and perspective from your side. You were the one who calmed me down, took that castle log out of my hand, said, just relax. There was always going to be another week. You did call it, Zels. You said the All Blacks would win. They wouldn't win by much. I felt that the one team that wouldn't get spooked at Eden Park would be the double World Cup winners, back-to-back World Cup champions, defending rugby championship title holders. I felt there was enough in that 23 not to be spooked, and they were spooked. When those lights got hit, the All Blacks walked out. They did the haka under a spotlight. They were 10 points, home advantage. You said Eden Park is worth 10. We gave them another 14. 24 points basically was too much to come back from. And do you still share the disappointment on this Monday as you did on Saturday as you took off from my place?
Mate, I will be forever disappointed that we let this opportunity slip to win at Eden Park and to record a history-making victory against the All Blacks. The Boks can turn it around. They can go win the Rugby Championship. They can march on and win the next World Cup, and we'll celebrate every single victory. But this will always stand out as something to look back on in disappointment and with regret, because this was a golden opportunity that we let slip. We were poor on the day, and the All Blacks weren't much better, and yet they came away 7-point victors. So disappointing. I do think we can bounce back. Definitely. We've still a great squad. We're still, to my mind, the best team in world rugby when we decide we want to go out and win games. So it's definitely not doom and gloom and is this an end of an era? But I think the Bok team is at a bit of a crossroads in terms of the relationship maybe between the management and the players, and perhaps the more experienced players, the double world champions, and some of the younger guys coming in. And yeah, I just wonder what the vibe is like there at the moment. So, but 100% behind the Boks, expect them to bounce back, hope they bounce back, and we'll get into the squad in a bit, but it's not all doom and gloom.
And for those who don't know the history of the show, Boks by 10, we reiterate, means we back them to go out the next week, as every South African supporter does, to do themselves proud, to do us proud, and to win the game. So kind of see it in that context. A guy who did himself very proud amid the debris of the first half was Marco van Staden, and he was your SA Rugby MVP of the game, voted for you, empowered and brought to you by Auto in General. Insurance with readiness for all life's tackles, and a guy who can tackle, a guy who was kind of head down and at the bottom of it all, Marco van Staden. The public thought he was the best. But again, those votes, normally it's a unanimous 50% of one of the players gets the MVP player of the day. This one was very close, but he did edge it.
Yeah, that is a very interesting point. Like, for example, when the Boks beat the Wallabies in Cape Town, Andre Pollard was the 55% winner of the MVP vote. Like you say, Marco got in at just under 12%. The next bloke in was 11.3, I think, and then 11.1, I think it was Ox and Chair. So Very, very close. I think it talks to the fact that people weren't really sure who the Bok MVP was in that game, and I can relate to that feeling. Yeah, so good. Well done, Marco van Staden, to stand up in a difficult situation and to perform well. That post got major traction on the weekend. We've got almost 100,000 clicks on it, and I think almost 20,000 votes. So people wanted to be heard about the MVP. And yeah, it just talks to how involved and how invested the South African rugby public is in the Springboks, that come rain or shine, they want to talk about it, they want to be involved, and that's very uplifting. This really is a team that represents the country. So a lot of interest in the Boks. Everybody obviously rooting for them to turn things around, and it's possible again this week. We go to Wellington, the Cape Town, where we've had some good hunting times there, I think, and a good prospect of a turnaround.
Yeah, and I mean, your voice is everything to us on the show, on the SA Rugby Magazine platform. We're thankful to Order in General for the investment.
Yeah.
They give you a voice. They're also going to give you some competition giveaways, the opportunity to win test match tickets, to watch the Boks play the Pumas in Durban, and also to win a Springbok test jersey. You just got to go to their Instagram page, their Facebook page, and give it a like. You got to earn the right to be in the competition. We talk about Marco van Staden being the MVP player of the test match. He's not in the match 23 for the Wellington test. Rassie Erasmus did the unthinkable, and he named his team on the Monday evening, New Zealand time. There was no Marco van Staden in it. And again, you can be part of this discussion, powered by Auto in General, the whole week. You go onto SA Rugby Magazine's Facebook, you go onto the Insta, you go onto the Keo Zels WhatsApp channel, and you tell us what you think. And obviously the SA Rugby Magazine WhatsApp channel, and you tell us what you think Rassie Erasmus's 23 looks like, and also tell us what 23 you would have picked. And you can also then be a winner of test match tickets, of a Bok jersey. And your voice was powered by Auto in General, backing champions since 1985. Insurance that's never not there, licensed non-life insurer, and FSP, T's and C's online. And we talk about online, Zels, and just massive interest in that game. I know you guys at SA Rugby Magazine, monstrous engagement, interaction, Saturday afternoon into Sunday and into Monday morning. I believe there was the vote, like Rate the Referee, had something like 92,000 views in 36 hours.
Yeah, no, it was huge. It was huge. A lot of people, a lot of interest. The referees taking it in the neck, Carl Dixon, in the aftermath of that performance. People got pretty loud about it. I mean, we spoke about it on game day, I think at halftime or maybe even full time as well, that, you know, you could raise some questions about some of the decisions that Carl Dixon made or didn't make, some of those 45-second rucks that New Zealand seemed to get away with. But my impression, at least my opinion, was that while he may not have had his best day at the office, I don't think the ref was responsible for that result. So, but everybody wanted to be heard on that conversation as well. So MVP and the refs, a lot of chats around it.
Yeah, look, again, I thought he was very conservative in how he coached New Zealand and very liberal in how he penalised South Africa. So you get that. You don't go to Eden Park and get the rub of the green. You've got to play well. And chatting briefly to Nick Mallett post the game, he was in no doubt that we were on the wrong side of a lot of refereeing interpretations. But as he said, the referee didn't give them 14 points in the first 15 minutes. We did. We missed 2 tackles. Basically, Willie overran the winner. They scored. Chesson didn't make the tackle. From that movement, they scored. And then Malcolm Marx uncharacteristically missed a one-on-one tackle. Will Jordan went right through and scored. And we were 14-0 down. And they hadn't played yet. And all we had done was fumble our way around the park for 15 minutes. So Rassie Erasmus afterwards said it was the most awful 15 minutes. He felt they got back into the game. They got stronger. The South African public must be a bit hurtful of them now. And I think that's about one of the things he got right. We are hurtful, and we're hurtful because there was an expectation for this team to be better. And that's not being negative. And I'm never going to apologize for having an expectation of a Springbok team that's the world champions to go to New Zealand and beat them. And I don't buy this narrative. We lost to the best team in the world, the current number 1 ranked team in the world, in their backyard where they hadn't lost since 1994. That's the mentality of a team that should be ranked 5th or 6th in the world, not a team that was on a 4-match winning streak against the All Blacks and had enough experience and potency in that match 23 to be 14-3 up and basically put the screws on New Zealand. They went into that test match fragile, post the hammering they got in Buenos Aires from the Pumas, and we kind of just gave them that one handout that they needed to get the crowd behind them and to give them that confidence that we would have to play the catch-up. And on the day, we just weren't good enough in terms of getting there, and also the lateness of our substitute introductions, particularly Will Cologne. I was big on this over the weekend. You have the best tight head scrummager in world rugby, the most destructive, and we saw that when he came on. And you keep him on the bench for 60 minutes, as they did in Cape Town, and they're going to keep him on the bench for who knows how long in Wellington, hopefully only 40. But that's one of the selections that has baffled me among many in this Castle Rugby Championship.
Yeah. Look, I think to your point about this All Blacks team and the quality of it, I don't think you're going to come into Eden Park with the Springbok side and face an All Blacks team that has more doubt than this one probably had. I think generally you get to Eden Park, you face the All Blacks, you're coming up against a team generally with momentum, self-confidence, clarity of plan, depth, quality of player. There are a bunch of things. I think if you measure the teams that the Boks have played at Eden Park and you put this one in the equation, I don't think it ranks probably in the top 25% of the spectrum probably. So this was a golden opportunity to get this win. We didn't get it. And as much as I don't understand and am frustrated by where the Boks are at, I think the key context that we're missing here is what is the plan. And I don't necessarily mean about what we're doing on the field. But, if you look at this match, if Rassie's attitude towards all of the test matches leading up to the World Cup is that none of them are weighted more than the rest, if a match against Georgia is of equal value to him and his plan as the All Blacks are, then it doesn't. None of this really matters. If this is all part of some long-term master plan to turn the team around and do what's not been done before, the proof will be in the pudding. And that doesn't excuse the results that go along the way. If you're going to keep the plan a secret, as probably most coaches would, you have to then take the criticism on the chin, because people who don't understand what you're trying to do are going to rate you from week to week to week, which is what the media does. So it is frustrating. I'm not smart enough to work it out where we're trying to go with what we're doing, or to understand the selections and the chopping and changing. 100% get that we are getting depth out of our selections, or we have at least up to this point. But I think when you marry that sort of merry-go-round of selections and you sprinkle a few injuries on top, and then you want to experiment with a new game plan, what you get out of it is a bit of a sort of potpourri of things. You don't really have a solid identity, and I think that's where the Boks are right now.
And I think you talk about the bigger plan, 2027 Australia World Cup. And again, we spoke post the match, a lot of emotion pumping in the veins. I've never heard Rassie, and when Jacques Nienaber was with him, talk about building towards a World Cup. They were talking about winning test matches, finding a right squad that could go to a World Cup. Nothing was sacrificed in the now for 2 years or 3 years down the line. That's kind of a narrative that I was so used to with Rassie and Jacques' predecessors, who would excuse defeats based on there's a bigger plan, and you get to a World Cup, you lose it, and then those 3 years are forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that with many other teams out there as well. And I thought that was a differentiator with them. They wanted to get a winning habit. Yes, Rassie's always felt you can transform, build, and win all at the same time. One doesn't have to be sacrificed at the altar for another. And going back to this specific back-to-back in New Zealand, I just felt it was such an incredible opportunity to do something really special at Eden Park with this group of back-to-back World Cup winners. We spoke about, was there that build towards a 23 throughout the mixing and matching, the Barbarians game, the 2 tests against Italy, the test against Georgia, the 2 tests against Australia. Was there this master plan to pick a 23 that was going to be the World Cup final 23? And it wasn't the case. And then it's not the case when you look at what he's picked for the next week. So is this a reaction to the defeat, or was this team picked before they got on a plane? And you'd like to think this team was picked before they got on a plane, injuries aside. When you look at the kind of backline he's picked, and it really screams Tony Brown, the backline to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's an exciting lineup. If I look at that lineup, take all the context of who they're playing and where they are in the season and what's happened last week, it's hell of exciting. I mean, Gaza at 12, Ethan Hooker in the mix, Kane and Moody. There's a lot to like about this lineup. So Very excited. If I was a betting man, I would struggle to see the cohesion in this team, I suppose, that you think might challenge the All Blacks. But the flip side is for the All Blacks, how do you really plan around where to attack these guys? Because they've picked their best ballers. Sasha at 10, Gaza at 12. You've got guys that can move the ball, guys that can make you miss, creative players. And you've got bulletproof guys like Ethan Hooker, who he thinks he's invincible now as a youngster, obviously new on the scene, full of confidence and full of verve. And I think that gives the Boks a real edge. This is a team that is very dangerous. In the right conditions, these guys could blow you away. I suppose the question is the relative lack of experience. So we dropped to 42 tests, which is nothing to sniff at, an average of 42 in the starting lineup, down from 63 last week. And the average age of the team drops from 31 to 29, which that kind of puts them into the frame. If the World Cup was this year, that would be the kind of, I guess, the frame that you want, right? Roughly 50 tests a player, 28, 29 years old. That's kind of where you want to be. So what the future is of this team, I don't know. This week it is very exciting. For me, all the question marks and asterisks about this selection are retro-facing, right? It's about, well, how did we get to this point? Last week's loss feels like it was, 12 months in the making. So it changes the conversation. If you just look at this selection in the context of this week, it's hell of exciting.
It is exciting, but I go back to when he has picked these kind of teams, and we've all been very excited and said, wow, individually, what exciting talent, what great young players. But where's the cohesiveness going to come from? And when I look at that kind of backline, and again, maybe it's because he never wanted New Zealand to see that backline, but we thought, shouldn't that backline have played one test against Italy, one test against Georgia? Because, again, they're going to play like it in that first 20 minutes, they're going to play like a unit that has never played together. It either comes off in a spectacular way or it's not going to come off. And I think that does a bit of a disservice to the individual quality, because we have been speaking for a long, long time about what is the succession plan to Deolandi and Kriel, with Lukanya being out injured for most of the time. Was it a Gaza at 12 and a Kane Moody? Was it a Gaza and an Ethan Hooker? Is Ethan Hooker a winner? Is he a centre? Is Damien the first choice fullback, Willemse, or is it Apuleli Fassi? When is Willie LaRue's kind of phasing out going to happen? We know that Edward came on and did well as a replacement for Cheslin. What's the combination that goes with Grant Williams? Is it Faf? Is it Kobus Reiner? And then we've always said it's the Sasha Pollard show more than the Marnie Pollard show. Marnie always there as a backup given the attrition rate. So when I look at the individuals, it's wow, it is hell of exciting. But collectively, I just think it's a big ask for them to be judged just on Saturday's game. And if this is where they are looking towards, then give them run against Argentina. Give them a proper crack on the end of your tour. We know what we got in Damien. We know what we're Deolandi. We know what we've got in Jesse. And then play these guys somewhat. I think that's the biggest critique I have at the moment is, yes, they build in depth, but with 20 minutes, 40 minutes, 60 minutes, we're not building depth with game time in terms of our consistent basis, and it's shown in our performances.
Well, that's the point for me, is that, the whole idea of building depth and giving these guys game time in July and August was to give them test caps and experience and all of that sort of stuff. But if you can waltz into Wellington with this team, which has relative inexperience, Ethan Hooker is just starting to thaw out now, having been in the fridge for so long. If you can waltz into Wellington the week after a loss against the All Blacks and beat them with this team, then you don't really need to build depth, do you? Because you can pretty much just take anyone out of the freezer and play them. I don't see it would undo all the efforts. The redeeming features of this year have been depth building through game time, but it would kind of undo that for me in a bizarre kind of way. And I also wonder about the implications and the repercussions of axing all of these veterans. Even Etzebeth, it's basically the core of the World Cup winning team. It's the most elder statesman in the squad. It's Eben Etzebeth, it's Andre Pollard, it's Jesse Kriel, it's Damien Deolander, it's Willie LaRue. Those are your main guys. You think those are your coaches on the field. There has to be some implications. These guys don't have 10 or 15 more tests against the All Blacks in their careers. And I'm not so sure they would have been happy to have been shifted sideways. It just kind of points to a picture of a negative reaction to last week's result, holding experienced players accountable. And I'm going to keep saying this. I know that these guys are not looking like they're playing at their best. But if you take an F1 car and you put it in a dirt race on a dirt track, it isn't going to look good. And I think the way the Boks are starting to play now moves away from these guys' core strengths, and in a way, it may be causal. It may be the reason why these guys are not looking at their best. So I just wonder what the relationship damage is from that.
If you look at Eden Park, Auckland, it's now 51 unbeaten, and we join Ireland. We joined France and England, having been beaten 5 times there. We do have that 1994 draw. It's 4 wins out of 29 since 1994 for South Africa in New Zealand. But Wellington has been where we've won at this Wellington Stadium. We won 36-34 in 2018. We drew 60 in all the following year, the World Cup year. And at the Old Athletic Park in 1998, we won there. The All Blacks, I think, have won 2 out of their last 8 at the Sky Stadium in Wellington. So as much as there's a belief within the All Blacks that they can't lose at Eden Park, there's a huge vulnerability that they struggle to win in Wellington. And doesn't that play into the psyche of this week, which is very different? I mean, these guys were playing for a legacy. I listened to several ex-All Blacks being interviewed last week, and they said you don't want to be the team that lost the record and not to the Springboks.
Oh, spot on.
Because you're always going to be remembered. The 1994 All Black side that lost to France in the last movement of the game, all those players get told all the time. Whenever there's a match at Eden Park, they talk about the test record. They go, and the last team to lose there was 1994, and they show those players. And their thing was, they need a new set of players in some respects not to be those guys. But Wellington is a very different kind of atmosphere, very different feel to it. And do you think that's why he may also have been comfortable to go with energized backs? And youngsters you've got nothing to lose. If we drop this series 2-0 or we get 1-1 out of it, we've learned from it.
I mean, I think that's very possible, right? We're trying to dig into Rassie's mind. It's quite tricky, as last week showed, to understand what the plan is and where he's going. I don't really know how accountable you can hold these players for what happens on the weekend, having not played together before. It is another golden opportunity to beat the All Blacks in New Zealand, which is in and of itself a massive feat. Like we've already said, I don't know whether it really makes up for last week. I don't think it would. For the missed opportunity that you've just mentioned there, the fact that those guys keep getting mentioned, that was the opportunity for the Boks to be the team that did it, and for always to be renowned as the team that broke that record. And I think in a way, that might be what motivates the All Blacks this week, is they're historically not good at the Cape Town. Yes, you've just done it. You've protected this record. You've played some great defense in terms of protecting the All Black honor, but can you be offensive? Can you go on the attack? Can you go and end this drought that the All Blacks have endured at the Cape Town? And can you restore the pride that people expect of the All Blacks playing in New Zealand to win against this Bok team that is very dangerous? So I don't think the All Blacks are going to be in any way duped or underestimate this Bok team. They know how dangerous these guys are. And for them, I think their motivators will be very internal this week about, okay, we kind of bought ourselves some credit last week at Eden Park. Now we've got to build on that. And one way to do that is to be the team that starts to make the Cape Town a fortress again. So I think they're going to come out full guns blazing.
You talk about trying to get into Rassie's head and the confusion that there is there. And, you know, we've been fed this chasing the sun to post-victory documentaries, and which were a long time in the making, outstanding documentaries, emotive, but documentaries that we saw when we all knew the result. A documentary could have been very different in post-production had we lost 12-11 in the World Cup final. And we've dined out on this. And we've dined out on the theatre of the Boks and the emotion, and especially the Rassie Erasmus fury at not seeing hurt in his players' eyes, not seeing them angry enough when they lost to Ireland in the pool game. And so there is something for the cameras at press conferences, and there obviously is the internal meetings. And the one thing that's been quite weird for me has been, I haven't seen a stroppy Rassie at Ellis Park. I haven't seen a stroppy Rassie in Cape Town. And I certainly didn't see a stroppy Rassie after that defeat. And while he said, yeah, the South African public must be a bit hurtful of us now, and we're going to take heat this week, and it's on us, and we know we're going to take a pounding, it was like a frivolous about it. And I'm not saying that's what he transfers into the change room or into the video session.
Sure.
But I think maybe the public is also looking for a bit more damnation from him towards the players and the coaching staff in the immediate aftermath,
point.
and to show them we know they're hurting. They were the ones who are on the field in the coach's box, but just to give us a little bit of that and to show us we are as pissed off, we're as disappointed, we're as gutted that we made the same mistakes every other Bok team has made that came to Eden Park to try and break this record. We came up short, and there's a reason we came up short, and we're going to try and fix it. But damn, don't giggle, don't laugh.
I think that's a fabulous point, mate.
Because it wasn't cool.
Yeah.
And to quote Rassie, we want to see the hurt in their eyes at a press conference, because the hurt is in every one of those loyal South Africans' eyes. And no one doesn't back the Boks for the next week. The overriding feeling that I got on social media, people were so annoyed that there was a lost opportunity, but equally, we can go out and win. It wasn't that they wrote this team off. It wasn't they said, they passed it, they're over it. We can go out and win. And I think what was at the heart of that gut feeling that I had on Saturday was, it reminded me of when Ireland went out to the All Blacks 28-24 in one of the greatest quarterfinals outside of France, South Africa in World Cup history. And the absolute disappointment, Irish legend Brian O'Driscoll in the studio, and some commentators trying to say, but hey, Ireland was part of one of the greatest quarterfinals. They had 37 phases. They could have won it, but for a contentious decision by the referee, etc., etc., etc. And he looked up and he said, for all the greatness of this Irish team going into the World Cup, they leave here as just another one of the 10 who have failed to go past the quarterfinal. Wow. And that's how I felt about this incredible Bok team, considered by many to be the greatest Bok team ever and the greatest rugby team ever. Now, the question mark there is, if you still can't go to New Zealand and win, you can't necessarily be the greatest, because that great All Black side, 11-15, came to South Africa and won often. And I just looked and thought, when we look at the history books, for all those wonderful, wonderful World Cup winners, on this particular Saturday, we were just another Springbok team that went to Eden Park and got beaten.
Yeah.
And got
Powerful. So for me, it wasn't so much about the result. Like, as much as I wanted the Boks to win there, I do believe in the value of history. For me, history is a stat. To the guys that said, no, we concentrate on the stats, history is a stat. A statistic of your success rate at a venue is a stat. So I totally believe in that, and I thought the odds were very much against the Boks, even though the All Blacks are in the context of All Blacks history, they are struggling. It was about the performance for me, and massive kudos to the players for rallying and fighting back and not quitting and playing to the end and finding solutions and working it out amidst the flurry of you're on, you're off, you're on, you're off. But what was disappointing for me was the performance. We didn't look like we were well prepared. And that for me was massively disappointing, because if you can't get well prepared to play the All Blacks at Eden Park, what are we even doing talking about you guys? So that needs to be fixed. And I'm not really sure how you repair that reputation dent. The other thing I would say is, you talked about Rassie and needing to show the hurt and all that sort of stuff. That is 100% valid, because you don't. The players have paid the price for last week's loss. There's a bunch of senior guys that played 6 million tests together who aren't going to be facing the All Blacks this week. And some of them may never play the All Blacks in New Zealand again. But you can't drop management team members. So your accountability has to be in the media to the public. And I think that's where they've maybe come up a little bit short as well. But again, always 100% behind the Boks. We've got the quality of players there. I'm just not always 100% sure exactly what we are pointing at. What are we trying to throw at you? Are we throwing at triple 20s, bullseye, a 1? What's the plan?
Well, we spoke about it on Saturday. Those of you who may have missed our immediate after the match 20-minute little segment. We spoke about the primary component of the Boks becoming attacker, not defense. Whereas when Jacques Nino was there, defense was the primary thing we did, and then the attack was built around that. The two I see to Rassie now is Tony Brown. He sits on his left. Jacques used to sit on his left. And that's what fundamentally, for me, makes our team look so confused at times. We've come out of a system that was built and ingrained in most of these players' heads for 6 years and was hell of effective. It won all the big games for us when it mattered.
Yeah.
Won us back-to-back World Cup titles, won us the big semi-final against Wales, 16-9, probably their toughest game in the World Cup playoffs in 2019. And all of a sudden, it's like we look at odds in our defensive structures, our defensive patterns, and our one-on-one tackling. I can't remember seeing a Bok team slip so many one-on-one tackles so easily. And, Russie defended Jerry Flannery afterwards. He said people keep on talking about our defense, but it wasn't Jerry who missed the tackle from the line-out. It wasn't Jerry who fell over the winner. It wasn't Jerry who went for the intercept. He says those are senior players that did that. So in a way, he kind of threw his players under the bus there. But they just do look a bit confused. I mean, Cheslin Colby, one of the best winners in the world, one of the best rugby players in the world. The basics say you just take the guy with the ball, and you take him out, you back him and you're inside. Now, that 23 Bok backline just didn't hesitate. They knew it was coming from the inside, was going to make that tackle and they scramble for each other. I mean, there was no cover for Malcolm Marx missing that tackle, because 2023 he makes that tackle. He makes that tackle, and the first man over the ball probably wins the turnover. And those are the differences for me. We are getting smashed at the breakdown. Italy did it to us. Georgia troubled us. Australia made a mess of us at Ellis Park. And New Zealand did the same thing. And a line-out for us, when you've got the likes of Earban, you've got the Peter Steph de Toy, the tall timber that comes off, Luert, and we are not winning our line-outs. 72% line-outs. 12 times we got into the 22, we couldn't finish. They got into our 22 twice and finished. And tackle success rate, I think, of 70, in the low 70% as well. That's not Springbok rugby.
No, and I think that is all a consequence of a change in focus and a change in priorities. I don't know, when Jacques was around, how much of the weekly schedule was spent on multi-pass, phase play, offloading, running support lines off offloaders, all of that sort of stuff. And the Boks have definitely leaned into the attack. There is some value in doing that, so nobody's saying it's a complete waste of time, but I think all of these things are a consequence of that change of focus. So some of our fundamentals are a little bit more rusty than they usually would be. Usually we'd be slick on everything, set piece, drives, defense, everything's in place. I think now there's more of a focus on, okay, how can we be more expansive? And to be more expansive, you're going to have probably lighter rucks in some situations than you would in the past, which means you are vulnerable to having to deal with somebody who wants to come and disrupt it and steal the ball. And in those situations, you have to react quickly. And again, that isn't a structured environment, right? That's something that you're reacting to on the fly. And I think that attack and those turnovers and that uncertainty and that conditioning stress that's being put into mopping up fires that wouldn't be there historically takes away from your defense. It puts your defense in situations more often now where you're trying to extinguish a fire that was started through a turnover or an error. And you're probably a little bit more gassed because you're running around trying to solve problems you didn't even know you were going to be responsible for. So I think all of those things are, in rugby, everything is connected to everything else. And so, yeah, it all comes back to how are they trying to play and what is the long-term payoff for that.
When you look at the side pick, the match 23 pick, let's focus on that. We'll be previewing this on our Thursday show. You used the word exciting, individually exciting. Where do you think New Zealand would look at that 23 and think there is a vulnerability and we can attack that vulnerability? Also knowing that they've got the comfort now of that one home win. Because a lot of people spoke it could potentially be 1-1. When they came here last year, a lot of their people were saying it could be 1-1. They're good enough to get one in South Africa. But they've got that one already in the bank for Rugby Championship, and they've protected Eden Park until the Aussies come in the last match of the Rugby Championship. When they look at it, yeah, there's great respect for the individual talents of each South African player there. Quality players. Where do you think they would think, hang on a second, we can get at these guys?
I don't think they're going to be like overtly focused on where the opportunities are. I think they're going to be very introspective and wanting to fine-tune what they did last week and make it more efficient. But I do think they'll look at a guy, for example, like Ethan Hooker, and they'll say, where can we maybe manipulate him for his lack of experience, whether it's in the kicking game or in the shape of how they attack, and maybe lure him in or lure him out or try and isolate him. I think between Ethan Hooker and Canan Moodie, in the context of this Springbok squad, you've got two of the lesser experienced defenders defending next to each other at times. And so I think they'll target that place just to test them and see whether there's a wrinkle, a seam that they can take advantage of. And, we mentioned Fussy. He's a guy whose kicking game's come along, I think, nicely this year. But he is excitable You know, I think, was it Bonnie Tyler wrote, I Need a Hero? I think that plays in his ears during games. And I think when he catches the ball and he sees a half gap, he feels like he has the speed and the creative ability to take advantage of it. And so the All Blacks might give him a few looks that encourage him to have a go from deeper than he probably should go. They'll probably want to try that out of it. But I mean, it's a great Springbok squad. The quality of player is there. It just comes down to the cohesiveness and how does that manifest on a game day? You're not as quick to the breakdown as you should be. The passes don't necessarily flow as easily as they would when everybody knows where they've got to be at the right time. So I think there'll be a little bit of that ring rust that creeps back in. But certainly, man for man, every single player there is a good player.
But if you look back three, Hooker has played on the wing for the Sharks most of the URC season.
Yep.
He's played with Fussy, who's been at fullback. Cheslin is a veteran. He can play anywhere, fullback, both sides of the wing. He will take charge there. The one area that we've been particularly strong at has been the contestables. We fell short at Eden Park. We gave away 4 penalties for obstruction as well with those contestables, which was just, to me, like you meant 5% off your game to kind of put yourself in that position. Senior players doing that as well. Is it an area that you think troubles you? The All Blacks would think now, actually, we've got the advantage. Christie kicked very well from the base. Bowden Barrett's line kicking was outstanding in those conditions, Eden Park. Do you think it's an area they'll go to again to look at that young back three and say, is there someone who's just going to slow it down, stick it into the corners, or are they going to try and play?
That's exactly it. No, that's exactly what I mean. That's what I would do. That's what I would do. I would try and take advantage of the inexperience in the back three and see what are their tendencies. You know, are they kicking when they should run? Are they running when they should kick? What's the decision-making process like with those guys? I also think in that second row, you got Luit playing 4 this week and Ruan Okia playing 5. I don't know if that's a tip towards having multiple options in the line-out and particularly maybe contesting the line-out. But, you know, that's an interesting wrinkle, that selection. Malcolm Marx gets another go. Jan-Hendrik Wessels, who a lot of people were impressed by in terms of his line-out work last week. He now moves to prop on the bench, and Marnus van der Merwe comes in. We'll get a chance to see how he runs the line-out in the second half. And then obviously between Jan-Hendrik Wessels, Marnus, and Wilco Louw, you've got three heavies ready to go at scrum time. So that scrum that Wilco Louw performed when he first came on was a thing of absolute beauty. If the Boks can get close to replicating that with any consistency on the weekend, it could be a great day for Springbok rugby.
I mean, that is going to be our rugby championship, our Castle Rugby Championship highlight. Wilco Louw's introduction on 60 Minutes, like they caged him. And he went in there and that was one of the most destructive scrums you will ever see against the All Blacks in the history of the game. Why are we introducing him on 60 Minutes, not on 45? We're not starting him for a reason. We want the stronger finish. But surely you give the guy more than 20 minutes. I see he made it into most if you look at Planet Rugby 365, the SA Rugby magazine, the overseas papers, he made it into their team of the week. He was the only South African who made it.
Wow.
And he was on for 20 minutes.
I mean, the frustrating thing there is that I think Joe Public would have chosen him ahead of Thomas du Toit at tight head. Most people would. People have been calling for him to be the first choice tight end prop for some time. When he plays, he delivers. And it's just an odd selection, isn't it? That, again, in such a crucial match, you kind of keep your ace up your sleeve until right at the end when it's probably too late to play it. So they've gone the same way again this week. We don't know. Maybe it's a conditioning thing. Maybe he's carrying an injury. Maybe there's some uncertainty around it. You know, historically, Rassie has started the guy who everybody thinks should be on the bench so that if he's having a stinker, they can yank him and put the main guy on. I don't know whether that plays into it at all this week, but it is a very interesting selection. And when you combine it with Luit and Ruan Okia in the second row, Thomas du Toit at tight head, and the change to the hookers on the bench, it's quite a lot of moving parts in that tight five.
If you look at the back three of the pack, and again, we've tried the 2 players to the ball when we've kind of also picked, say, Sia at 8 to play a different role to a Jasper Wiese.
Yeah.
And but when it comes to the 6 jersey, you either pick Marco van Staden or you pick Sia, if Jasper is available, as he is for this one, and Peter Steff at 7, obviously. Do you think there's greater balance to this background? Again, no disrespect to Marco, he did an outstanding job.
Yeah.
Sia is the captain. He's your first choice. His inspiration is just without question. But having Jasper Wiese back, that physicality, that bulk at 8, you may see a stronger showing from Peter Steff du Toit. He doesn't have to shoulder all that physical responsibility.
Yeah.
Do you think there's more balance, though, to the pack?
Cleveland has it's a great back row. Jasper Wiese is a renowned north-south physical power ball carrier. Siya Kolisi, you just have to say his name, speaks for himself. And then Peter Steph Tutoy is no slouch, having won World Rugby Player of the Year a couple of times. So it's a great back row. I don't know how it meshes with a very creative backline that's going to be moving around. In terms of the athleticism we had last week with Sia and Eskom is now replaced by sort of the heavy weather tank of Jasper at 8. Perhaps that's the reason there's a change in the second row with the athletic Loert and Rowan Okia. Maybe they're going to be doing the work rate, and when the play comes to Jasper, he's going to do the hammering and the mashing. But it's going to be interesting to see how he meshes with what looks like it's going to be quite a coast-to-coast plan, having been out for as long as he's been out.
And then obviously we spoke about the midfield. We'll get to them, but this guy, full blast, Sasha FM.
Machine.
We adore him. We love him. We think he's a generational talent. We know he can do everything. I just want to go out there and play like he can. And I believe he's good enough to manage a game at this level. He had no issues with it when he played them at Ellis Park. He was brilliant against Australia and Brisbane last year, and in Perth as well. And I think maybe a bit of doubt crept into his mind because too many voices out there saying he shouldn't do certain things and he should do other things. To me, let him go out and play. The fact that Mani's on the bench is they don't want to sacrifice anything if it's not going well for him. They haven't looked to the goal-kicking insurance policy of Andre Pollard, who missed his first one of the season, angled 45-meter kick because we didn't back our lineup. And I think the combination of him with Damien, Willemse, and then obviously Kane and Moody is one that a lot of people have in their fantasy teams always put down. I think from a Stormers perspective, Dobbo will be looking at it and seeing how does Sasha and Damien go as well. If they can do it against the All Blacks, well, they can do it against anyone in the URC. So an interesting selection there, but your message to Sasha would be what?
Oh, just go out and do what you do, mate. I mean, like you say, generational talent, great prospect. He is going to learn a few things the hard way, given his age and his relative inexperience, but he's going to come on and leap some bounds. There hasn't been a 10 that's come through that is the full package like this kid is for a very long time. I mean, probably Gaza is the closest thing to it. And I'm very excited to see the two of them go. Gaza could easily be a great 12 for South Africa. Big shoes to fill with Damien de Allende being the current holder of the 12 jersey, and I don't think Gaza's going to play quite the same way. But for me, when that guy's where the traffic is thickest and has the least time to think, his natural instincts are explosive. He's a big hit on defense and obviously offers major value with boot and with the hand. So could unlock this back line. If you want to play a wide game, he wouldn't be a bad guy to have at 12.
So fair to say, we're excited about this 23. As we were excited about the Eden Park quality of the 23 that went out, we weren't sure about the combinations that were picked then. Good enough to win. Definitely good enough to win if they get it right. We'll see what the All Blacks come back with. It's going to be a double header on Saturday. It's the Women's World Cup quarterfinal. It's the Black Ferns against our Bokkies, and a dose of reality as we spoke about in the last league game. We saw New Zealand beat Ireland 40-0. We saw England beat Australia 47-7. And we saw France beat South Africa 57-10. And we mentioned it. That's the perspective for our South African audience to understand. There's a top 4 in women's rugby that is outstanding. England hasn't lost for 31 games since a shock defeat against the Black Ferns in Auckland in the last World Cup. They're the defending champions. France are very good. You get a side like Australia that has been in the top 3 for a while. To take 40 points against England shows just what a chasm there is between the top 4 and the rest. We've broken into the top 8 of world rugby. It's a great achievement. Our greatest hope will be expectation to be competitive against New Zealand. That's not the Black Fern side we played in Athlone. None of those players that were in Athlone are in England. And I think huge effort from the ladies for not giving up, but also a good reality check to the euphoria in this country that their biggest challenge was to beat Italy and make it into the last 8, and they did that. And don't expect them to go out and beat the Black Ferns in the quarterfinal. What you want is improvement, and you just want growth in that team and that experience that they can come back and say, the next World Cup, we want to be semi-finalists, not quarterfinalists.
Yeah, go out and beat the Black Ferns. I know you can. No, look, the odds are against them, obviously. I think it's fantastic that they're into the playoffs, like you said. Looks like Sway's rolled the dice a little bit with selections, kept a few ladies back for this big one. And for me, I think we need to measure the quality of this match in how much grit, how much fight we've got. I think that's going to be evident. The ladies are going to give it everything. And so I know the odds are very much against them. It's David versus Goliath, but it would be nice if 1 or 2 stones do land and we've got something to cheer about during the game. And we'll all be rooting for the unthinkable, a Springbok victory against the All Blacks at a World Cup.
Imagine we did do the double. But that's fantasy because we won't do the double. But I know we can win in Wellington. We're good enough to win in Wellington. We just have to be competitive in that quarterfinal when it comes to the women's box. You must go to our WhatsApp channels. You must go onto the Castle Lager app. Mzansi, the biggest ever braai that they're building, 24th of September, Heritage Day. Hopefully we'll have a World Cup. We'll have a World Cup celebration. And we will also have a scalp from New Zealand when we take it into Heritage Day and we prepare for the Pumas. So go on there, support Castle Lager like they've supported us. And I certainly supported them on Saturday. I must say that. And then go to our WhatsApp channel, Stecco, giving away great prizes again. See who's won there, see what you've got to do. And obviously join the rugby conversation. But I did catch up with one flip.
Share van my nie, Keo. Ek was te teleurgesteld. Zeker voor Tannie. Zeker voor Tannie. You want the Pieter Staff is not looking so strong. Ek weet nie wat is daai manne. Wat sit hulle in die wyn of die bier daar, want ek weet hy bier smaak nou nie so lekker nie. Maar ek toe hy eers 20 minute toe sê ek toe Tannie nie is problems. Hier kom nou probleme en hier kom probleme vir die bokkies en toe sê ek there will always be Wellington, maar ek was teleurgesteld want daai skaal van Wolke was nog eens uitstekend geweest. Maar ek dink hierdie All Blacks, they must play under pressure. En ons het vir hulle niks, daai blitsdiefens, Jacques nie naby, hy was nie daar geweest nie. Toe sê ek vir Tannie, but it's alright, the sun will come up, we will always be back in the bokkies. En ek gaan 'n brandwyntjie vat en ek gaan so stilletjies so dronk word en so stilletjies weer nugter en we take them again next Saturday. Maar hy sê vir Zels, hy moet positief wees. Hy moet bietjie glimlag. Hy moet van daai Meksikaanse mannetjie, Ricky, hy moet hom terugbring. En sê vir die mense daar, it's always Boks by 10.
I love it.